Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's Reddit Quickie video, taken from the HFY subreddit called Mender, written by HellsKitchenSink. The link to the original will be down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Sir? Oh. I looked up from the bottle of honey wine. It was an excellent vintage. Debranthian, or at least I was promised that someday it would be. I'd need to age it for another 50 years before the peak of flavor. But, well, why wait? What is it, Dolsbury? The stify little gnome straightened up. Sorry to disturb you, sir. There is someone downstairs. He's demanding to see you. I sighed. Not the Duke again, is it? I told him he can bluster and threaten all he likes. I'm not designing something so atrocious. No, I think you should see this. I sighed and I stood. Blasted gnomes love their surprises. I took another sip of the honey wine and set it down on the table. Before bringing it along with me, sobriety would be no defense against whatever I had to deal with. The first floor of the shop was unusually empty. Normally the great and good would be thick as flies, attended by my journeyman. At the moment, all my journeymen were pressed up against the walls, and their only great or good seemed like they had gone from bad to worse. He was a human, and he was a barbarian. Oh, I know, barbarian. A dirty word for the elven towards a human. This isn't about how long his ancestors had been using indoor plumbing or boiling their water. He was wearing a fur pelt and almost preserved his modesty, and a great axe that was strapped to his back. I suspected that it had seen better days, as the edge appeared to be entirely dull. For a moment, I had seriously questioned whether he wasn't an unusually well-sculpted column. The only hint he wasn't was the mane of black hair hanging around his shoulders, and even that was only a possibility. He turned towards me. He approached. Dolsbury bustled around in front of him. "Can I help you?" "Let me down!" The barbarian carefully deposited Dolsbury to one side, atop a counter, and approached me. I took an involuntary step back, forgetting that I was on the stairs, and fell on my rear, an embarrassment to an elven grace everywhere. Clutching the honey wine to my chest, the great brute reached behind him, and my eyes fixed on the axe. He withdrew a small, delicate blue shirt, folded several times over. "You are the best tailor," he said. It wasn't a question. Well, I mean, one doesn't like to brag, but I certainly have a flair. There is a hole. He looked down at the shirt and then back up at him. "I am certainly the best tailor in the city, possibly the world. I am not repairing your shirt." He reached behind him again and withdrew a heavy sack and dropped it onto the floor. Diamonds spilled out onto the ground. A lot of diamonds. "I am quite wealthy, thank you," I said, my eyes on the diamonds. I mean, I wasn't that wealthy, but my liver could only take so much honey wine. "Boss," whispered one of my journeymen, Tonadil, a young and somewhat impressionable wood elf from one of the more cosmopolitan forests. "That's Fangor, the Unbroken." I blinked and looked up at the man. Humans were difficult to tell apart, but most of them were not 7 feet tall, and most did not have a ring of tooth-shaped scars around their throat. I stood up nonetheless, still clutching the wine. "I am not motivated by your fearsome reputation either." "You know me," he said. "I am Fangor. I am of the Eight. We killed the Dark Lord." My lips curled. "You think I owe you for that? The Dark Lord was a human." "I am not done," he said, holding up one gigantic calloused hand. "My ally, Fade. I was slow. This hole was meant for me." He unfolded the shirt, and a large, very obvious hole was visible in the fabric from both sides. "Oh," I said, a bit weakly. "I am, sorry." "She is alive. Our healer is skilled, but he cannot heal this." I held out my hands and placed the garment gently, reverently across my palms. I studied it, the honey wine making me sentimental. "Well, I suppose that I could—" "Not you," he pointed at the diamonds. "That," he pointed at himself, "to teach me." I looked at his fingers. He could probably snap my throat between two of them. I thought of what a brute like him would do to the garment. Young human, who is the oldest person in your, tribe or village or horde or whatever you have? The man looked up at the ceiling, massive fist braced on his hips. Great Orc, his hair is white. He is the oldest shaman. And the moot, he has nearly 500 great moons. I blinked and did the math silently in my head. He's a shade under 42 years. You must be kidding. Do you people not have, medicine? I looked at my hand as Fangor stared silently. When Great Orc was born, I had been an accomplished master for 5,000 great moons. You simply do not have enough time to learn, young human. Why does it matter if to you who repairs it? I can have it finished in a few days with the proper materials. That was a gift. Her parents gave it to her. The Dark Lord took them from her because I was slow. He took that from her. I have wronged her. I've wronged them. I've wronged it. He pointed towards the shirt. All things have a soul. That soul can be broken, and one who breaks it must be the one to repair it. The pelt you wear, if it's damaged, what do you do to repair it? He nodded. Find a new bear. Get it. Skin it. Throw away the damaged one. You don't care what happens to that soul? No. The bear started it, he said, and there was a very final nod in his head. I sighed. Well, there are 3 problems. First, this class is Argian jute. It's a method for actually making it lost, and it is quite valuable. Finding a sample for a proper patch will be expensive. You might find small garments in the treasure vaults and some of the richer kings. Second, the dye. You see this blue? Yes, he said, after several seconds of hesitation and careful study. This is made from the shells of a certain, very long-lived, very hostile mollusk. Humans call it I sighed, ship buggerer. The small, manageable specimens are very possibly entirely extinct. You would have to confront one of the old bulls. They are sexually attracted to ships sailing out of the wrecker coast. It's called that because they wreck the ships they're attracted to. Lastly, you need to learn how to patch. I could not even let you make an attempt until you were a master in your own right. The barbarian rubbed his chin and nodded. He spat in his hand and held it out. I stared in fascinated horror at it until he put it away, wiping his pelt. Very well, I'll come back with jute, and shall we begin training? Rather clever, said Dulsbury, after the shop was once again ours. That wild goose chase, no chance he's finding those. Yes, I somewhat distracted, looking down at the shirt. A week later, he returned, carrying a robe of Argian jute, and a king's ransom of a shipbugger's shell. Good sod of diamonds, murmured Dulsbury, holding his nose as he stared at the shell. I sat, a nearly empty honey wine bottle in front of me, staring down at the robe. Never thought you'd actually get to touch it. I brushed my fingers across the stitching. Might even be able to reverse engineer the secret of making it. Only one problem now, said Farangor. I looked down at his hands. Well, at the very least it deserves the attempt. I will show you how to mend, how to patch. It'll take some time to master. Just when I judge you're ready. A month later, I sat sitting back, the bottle of honey wine in my lap, as I watched him sew. Fine, precise movements, the minimum thread necessary, the color of both thread and patch matched perfectly to the shirt. Even down to the fading, the needle raising and falling with a delicate precision. When he finished, he held up the shirt up to me. The patch was very nearly invisible. Of course, it would still be there. A patch, might like a scar, can never fit perfectly, even with the rest of the shirt, I said, but you've done incredibly well. The scar is not broken, said Fangor, nodding at satisfaction, a finger brushing across his neck. It will make Fate smile. Thank you. He looked at me, and then over at the dressing dolls. The Duke's flippery lay half-finished. Does making bring you happiness? It used to, I said, and I took a sip of the honey wine. This is a small thing. He nodded at the patch, but it make me happy to learn. He looked at me once again, his arms crossed. What more can you teach me? I blinked. Well, everything, if you have the time. I have no Dark Lords to kill right now. He stood up and nodded. I will be back. And that, my friends, is the end of this Reddit Quickie. I hope that you enjoyed. If you would like to support this channel, there are numerous ways to do so, listed in the description down below. The easiest and best way would be to share this video and my channel as much as possible. I'll see you all in the next video, and I hope that you have a good one until then. Cheers. P.S. With all the changes in YouTube recently, it has become more a case of when my account will get banned rather than if my account will be banned, the same as everyone else. If you look down below, there is a link to my SoundCloud account where everything gets backed up. I recommend that you follow that account just in case something happens to this account. Other than that, everything will still continue as normal. Thanks. Cheers.